Hello and welcome to episode 464 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and today's episode is really special. Very special to me personally because it's one of my favourite bands. It's someone I've always wanted on Mark and Me since I launched, so I'm glad to say, well, more than glad, I'm absolutely thrilled to say today's guest is Roddy from the awesome Idlewild. Now, growing up, there are bands that changed my life, and when I do this podcast, I ask other guests, tell me about the first albums you listened to, or the first live shows, or albums that really changed your life. And Idlewild, along with Silverchair, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, are up there as one of the bands that really changed everything for me musically. At college, at uni, I was absolutely obsessed. To see them live and see Roddy kind of lying on the floor and screaming, and had that kind of Kurt Cobain about him, but then the intelligent songwriting and the incredible lyrics and the way they've evolved and kind of chilled out but also kept that rawness. They are truly one of my favourite bands of all time, so I'm absolutely thrilled that they're joining me on today's episode of Mark and Me. But before I get to the interview with me and Roddy, let's touch base and talk about my last episode. It was with Beauty School Dropout, a huge episode. Numbers were wild, so thank you to everyone that took the time to listen. They're a great band. Everyone is loving them. The hype behind that band is amazing. So I feel it's like one of those bands that I've been lucky enough to get on now, because in a few years they'll be too big, they'll be selling out arenas. So thanks to everyone that took the time to listen, and thanks to Beauty School Dropout fans for joining on board, subscribing, sharing the episodes. I've seen loads of new faces, so welcome, and I hope you all stick around for a long journey. Right then, today it's all about Idlewild. The band, as we're sitting here now, are about to release their brand new album, which I can't wait for you all to hear. It's self-titled, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and it's out on the 3rd of October. There's a single out right now called Like I Had Before, which is unbelievable, but they still got it. I can't wait to go and see them because they're on a UK tour in about a few weeks' time, and I'm going to go to the Wolverhampton date. But enough about all this, let's get to it because it's a great interview and one that I've been waiting an awful long time for. So here's me and Roddy from Idlewild talking all things Idlewild. Roddy, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, Roddy, this is your first time on Mark and Me. I've had guests that have been on 3 or 4 times. So what I want to do is go on a bit of a trip down memory lane. And for the listeners out there, maybe huge Idlewild fans, but maybe people that might discover the band now, is when you were growing up as a kid, I wondered if you can still remember that first cassette or CD that you actually went out there and bought with your own pocket money.
Yeah, I mean,
it could be embarrassing if it is, Roddy. I don't mind if it's a terrible one or if it's an absolute classic.
I mean, it's not like musically that good, I guess, but like I do remember it was probably about mid-80s. It was Five Star, the pop band Five Star.
Yes, my God.
So their album Silk and Steel.
Wow.
I bought that on tape in Littlewoods in Dundee.
Littlewoods, that takes me back. Bloody hell.
Littlewoods was basically like a shop that sold everything. That had like a cafe. I mean, I used to hang every Saturday. I'd spend with my granny and granddad in Dundee, and they always had their lunch at Littlewoods. They always went there, and they actually used to bring their own rolls. They only had to buy a piece of cheese and a pot of tea. They're very Scottish in that way. But anyway, I had a music department, and I remember I used to get kind of bored hanging about with my granny and granddad and their friends. Not like I was bored with my granny and granddad, but just old people chatting. So I used to go and look in the music department. I was kind of interested in music a bit, so, and I had like some pocket money saved up, so I didn't know who they were or what. I just bought it on impulse.
Do you know what? That's really spooky. I wasn't in Dundee and I wasn't at Littlewoods, but when I grew up, Littlewoods was the place to go. And this will sound like I'm ancient now, but I'm 43. So when I went there, my mum and dad would take me at the weekends, and it would be like, take your pocket money, because it sold everything. So I'd be buying Ghostbuster figures with my pocket money. But we went to the cafe, and I remember it completely like it was yesterday. And it was always, I remember the big sign: cooked breakfast, 6 items for 99p.
Oh
And
yeah, that
that
was
that's like wow.
it was just full of, and the one in Dundee was just it's where all the old people met up. So it was just,
Yeah,
and it was when you could still smoke in places. So I remember it being smoky. So I
yeah.
just remember the smell of chips and cigarette smoke, and watching old people eat their donuts and drink tea, and yeah, yeah, it did. It sold toys and music and clothes, and it was right in the center of Dundee too. So it was like the place, kind of a bit of a hub.
I mean, it's people are like, "Wow, it's like your childhood," but it was great. Like I remember going there and being like, "I'll get some pick and mix, I'll get some toys, I'll get maybe
Yeah, you could
a
get.
new
I
take." You
mean,
know,
it's an unlikely place for me to start my musical journey, though. I suppose the Little Woods music department.
well, weirdly, I had for episode 300, I had Simon Neil from Biffy Clyro, and we sat down and I was talking to him about his early days, and his was Woolworths, and I
Yeah,
was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, I bought Guns N' Roses and Metallica and Soundgarden," and I was like, "Fucking hell!" Like in Woolworths, because I
Woolworths had a
forgot, you
good.
know.
Yeah, the Woolworths in Dundee had a good music department. It was more of a place for buying music than Littlewoods.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's like, I guess there was a record shop in Dundee, but I would have been too young to go there, like, or discover it. Or my granny and granddad wouldn't have taken me, so
that's
it
fair.
was only really where I could access that sort of thing. And I did like the tape, but I have an older sister, and she was getting into cool bands, so my 5 star fandom lasted only probably a few months.
So what did it kind of then evolve to? Was it then bands that were more guitar based, and were you then starting to see at a young age that there was this love for actual proper like a performing band, or was it just a case of just listening to absolutely everything and seeing what you kind of liked?
The first thing I got into was metal,
Oh,
and
nice.
that was because I was really into role playing games as a teenager. Well,
Yeah.
as not as a teenager, I was like a 10-year old, 11-year-old. That period, I was into Dungeons and Dragons and the Warhammer games and stuff because all my kind of nerdy friends at school liked the same thing, and metal bands went with that. You played Dungeons and Dragons on a Friday evening, and you listened to tapes of metal bands like Megadeth or Iron Maiden or Anthrax, or so that's the kind of stuff that I started getting into and buying tapes by these bands. But as I say, my older sister, she was into the Smiths and Elvis Costello, and she discovered, like, she was the first person I knew that knew Nirvana and Sonic Youth, and
Oh, wow.
so I was kind of like, quite quickly thought, these metal bands are like, they don't sound as good as this. So my education really came through her. I mean, she went to Reading in '91 and saw Nirvana. And used to go to the Barrowlands a lot in Glasgow and see all these cool bands, My Bloody Valentine and Teenage Fan Club, and all these bands that were starting off then. So yeah, she provided that portal into music, like a lot of older siblings do.
Were you lucky enough that she took you along to one of the first gigs you can remember? Was it a great one?
I
Because
went to
mine
the
was
first.
Green Day, which I was so grateful for.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, the first band I went to, my sister's called Kirsty, and she took me to see the Pogues in '91. That was my first gig
Wow.
at the Edinburgh Playhouse. Shane wasn't singing on that tour because he was like, I think he was maybe in rehab or something, but Joe Strummer was singing instead. And I
Fucking
had no
hell.
idea. Well, I had no idea who Joe Strummer was, so I was just disappointed that Shane wasn't there. But obviously they were doing lots of Clash songs with the Pogues, and now I would think that, God, I wish, it was good though. But I mean, I remember this feeling of disappointment when Shane didn't appear on stage.
If
Um,
only you had hindsight back then.
well, the thing is, we didn't have you. I don't think we knew that till the actual concert started because there was no. I think they must have said something, but so that was the first gig I went to. The second one was again with my sister. It would be the roller coaster tour, My Buddy Valentine, Dinosaur Jr.,
Oh, wow.
Jesus and Mary Chain and Blur. That would have been early 1992. So yeah, she had provided that. I and we went to Glastonbury that year too. So
Dude, what great. Like, how much love could you give to your sister for that? Like, that is shaping the way that things were going to turn out. And, like, that second tour of that band you saw, My Bloody Valentine, Sonic Youth, like, fucking hell. Like,
well,
I don't know where you go from
she'd
that.
seen them
Yeah.
before. She'd seen them before, but I wasn't really prepared for how loud they were going to be, and I was a bit sort of almost shocked by people because the first gig was all seated, the Pogues gig.
Yeah.
So suddenly in this, everything's really loud, and the audience are kind of really going for it. And but I do remember like we lived in a small town, so there wasn't that many people that were into kind of music we were into. But I do remember being at I think it was the SECC, the roller coaster tour was suddenly all these people that you wanted to kind of hang about with. Do you know what I mean? Like, where do they all live? I was like, they must live in Glasgow or Edinburgh or other places. It felt like it was there were magnets to draw the people that you wanted to be around. It was very tribal back then, I guess, in that way. It still is a bit music, but not less so than it was then. Yeah, there was just this feeling that there was like a world out there to discover. I remember that. I was only 15 years old, but
It's an amazing way to start, and I think to go and go to Glastonbury, that must have just been like, oh my God, like this is all I want to do for the rest of my life.
yeah, there was an element of that. I mean, it was Glastonbury '92, so it was like half the size it is now, and you could still buy it. We bought our tickets like a few weeks before, and we just drove down. Me, my sister, and two of our friends. We drove down and all the way from all the way from Dundee. It's a long way.
I'm trying to
And
think
yeah,
who played that year. Do you
Lou
remember?
Reed was one of the headliners.
Oh wow.
Um, I was interested in then it was called the NME stage because it was like PJ Harvey and Blur and um, yeah, I can't we what the thing is because it was smaller and we were obviously very new to that kind of going to a festival. We camped in front of the main stage, not right directly in front of it, but like just above it, and we mainly stayed there the whole weekend. We just had a traveling rug that we used to sit on. And we just sat there and watched bands. We didn't like drink or anything like that because we were like, didn't have much money. We just sat and we had a camping stove and we made like, baked potatoes, I think, and drank cups of tea and just watched loads of bands. It
I'm
was
just looking
great.
at the lineup now. You had Morrissey, you had
He pulled
Carter
out.
USA. Oh right, okay, Morrissey.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we were big. Well, I am a big Smiths fan still and big Morrissey fan then. He pulled out at the last minute, which was really disappointing.
Oh, Carter USM though. Bloody hell, that
I
takes me
didn't like
back.
them.
No,
I didn't like them. No, I wasn't a fan at the time. No, my sister didn't mind them, but Ned's Atomic Dustbin. I had more of a soft
oh,
spot for.
nice.
I saw them. Loads of great bands. Teenage Fanclub played that year, I think, as
I was
well.
just gonna say, I've just seen them on the post. I was thinking,
Yeah.
wow, wow, you've been some good shows to start. So was it at that point, or was it a bit late on in life? You thought, I want to be in a band. Like, I actually want to do this myself.
Well, I was in a band at that point. I formed a band. I lived in America when I was a teenager for 2 years, 13 to 15. So when I moved back from America, that's when I started going to shows with my sister and stuff. So I'd formed a band when I was in America because that's when I discovered basically punk rock,
Yeah,
in between the metal and the Smiths. It was like, I discovered all these kind of, because I got friends at school. I had friends at school in America that were really into it. In American high school, they do this thing when if you don't pass enough tests, they hold you back a year. So you can be 14 in the same year with like 17-year-olds. It's kind of a messed up way
that's
of
crazy.
it is. So, but because of that, I had like a friend that was like 3 years older than me that played in his brother's punk rock band. And he used to lend me tapes. Like he was rubbish at school. He was just basically waiting to leave school. He had to be a certain age till we could leave. But he'd lend me tapes of like the Replacements and Minor Threat and that kind of Black Flag, all that Mud Honey, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I formed a band with my friends that we were terrible, but we were kind of trying to emanate that kind of vibe. And then when I moved back to Scotland, that's when I was quite serious about trying to get a band together, which I tried to do for years at school, but wasn't until moved to Edinburgh that I found the guys to form Idlewild.
And that's 30 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, I mean that's
Wow.
kind of amazing, really.
I was lucky that I was when I grew up, I listened to bands like Nirvana, The Usual, Guns N' Roses. I then got into Idlewild when I was listening to bands like 100 Reasons, Hell is for Heroes, Biffy Clyro. There's this influx of bands, but I remember, I know a lot of fans that are listening, but I remember going out and getting Captain as the EP, and I was like, this is fucking mind blowing. And
Hmm.
what I loved about you guys, especially at the time, was your guitar work. I was just sat there like trying to play along, and I wasn't just playing power chords. I was trying to blow the. Remember, I'm really young at this point, playing along, kind of learning that you don't just need to play the root chords. You can start going all over the shop, and I was just really blown away by your songs, and it never went away. I was so impressed when I got to see you guys play, and when I got Hope is Important, everything changed for me. I was like, I want to be in a band. I want to go out there. And I did. I formed a band and we would listen to Idlewild all the time. 100 Broken Windows for me is still in my top 10 albums of all time. So
Oh, thanks.
it's an absolute masterpiece, my friend. And I just was blown away by the fact that I felt like you're a British band. So in my eyes, okay, these guys are from Scotland and I could go out there and probably it felt I could achieve it because I was going to see you in places like the Charlotte in Leicester and then at Leicester
Yeah.
University, and I was like De Montfort Uni, and because you were up close and you were in NME magazine, there wasn't Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I was like, fuck, like they're touchable, they're in front of me, but they're real, and I could do this. You gave me hope.
Well, I mean, that's the way that I felt about all the bands I went to see too, because they were the idea of being in a band for me was always about the exchange of ideas. It
Yeah,
was never about not even professionalism or careerism or anything like that. That was never even we just didn't think that existed. You couldn't make a living out of playing the music that you wanted to play. So we just would carry. Our principles were very much like, let's make something together, and then let's make something together. We can hopefully make a connection with someone else. And the fact that we couldn't really play and we were learning together was also really kind of liberating. But that's what I felt when I went to see all the American bands I used to love, going to see in clubs in Edinburgh and Glasgow. You felt you were standing in front of people that were really just like exchanging their ideas with you in a sort of a rudimentary way. And they were almost just like, when it's the audience, people forget it's the audience and the band that make the show together. It's not like it's a combination of them both. And particularly that whole scene, that late 80s, early 90s scene of even into the mid 90s when Idlewild formed. That kind of there was a really healthy kind of friendly, rock, whatever you want to call it, underground rock, left field rock, noisy rock, whatever it is. I don't know the definition. Indie rock can be, um, of people kind of helping each other, encouraging each other, and going to see each other's bands. And so we were very much, we would never had any ideas of like being famous or even the stage as a thing. We were never like performers. We just went up and played the songs that we'd made up, and we obviously got into them because if you don't really know how to play that well, it doesn't matter if you're making mistakes. So we would like Rod would be jumping around his guitar, and Bob would be his bass would always fall off, and it was quite chaotic. But the audience would feed off that energy, and it became these concerts became more and more wild, and people started to tell their friends to come, and really that's how Idlewild began. Like it's really like a word of mouth thing based around the kind of chaotic live shows. And obviously as the band progressed and we really started to focus on working on songs because we signed to a label, and that allowed us to not have jobs and concentrate on being creative. We never took that for granted at all, and that's why the band improved so much, because we've spent so much time practicing and working on songs and sharing our ideas together.
did you have any kind of, I know it's difficult looking back, but did you have any expectations? Hope is Important out the year's 1998. I remember going to see the tour. Did you kind of see this kind of growth where more people were coming to the shows when you were playing songs like When I Argue Icy Shapes? More people were singing back. The merch was getting busier each night. Did you kind of see the growth, or were you just trying to just run and not even stop for any moment to kind of breathe? Was it too intense because you kind of felt this, the popularity was growing, especially when 100 Broken Windows came out, or were you just too involved internally that you couldn't really take a step back?
No, it was very gradual with our band. I mean, we were kind of old fashioned in that way that like it took us up to basically I consider Captain our first album. So
Yeah,
it wasn't until the remote part, which is our fourth album, that we actually became like, I guess, quote unquote, like a popular band, like a mainstream band. We had a sort of foot in the mainstream, certainly.
I think
So
100
that
Broken Windows felt massive, dude. Like when Little Discouraged and Roseability, I just remember being at the gigs and it being so hot, dripping
Yeah,
with sweat, and
I mean,
you know,
it got like we started in 98 and 99, we were largely playing clubs and supporting
yeah.
bands. Um, but then by the time of like Broken Windows, we were suddenly in, yeah, like sort of 1,000 capacity rooms, and it's still the energy from those early shows was still there. So like, even though we were now in 1,000 capacity rooms as opposed to 200, 300 capacity clubs, the audience was it was like a club for them. So like it still was still chaotic and still really energetic and noisy, and people going flying everywhere. So suppose that what we noticed was between broken windows and the remote parts. So obviously we're stepping up a level and we're in slightly, 2,000 capacity rooms like the Barlands or
Yeah.
Brixton Academy or something, and then suddenly that's not there. People aren't quite as wild as they were, and there you can see the real mix of folk coming that have heard your song on the radio, that have watched you on television, that like your music. So I don't mean like I'm not being. It's great that they came along, and otherwise we wouldn't still be around if our audience hadn't changed. So, but that was a difference I noticed really that around that time. I was like, I suppose I really noticed. 100 Broken Windows was the first time we were like on TV,
Yeah.
and up until that point, we'd been a band that music fans liked, and like I'd be recognised maybe in a bar in Glasgow by another music fan. But suddenly, after we'd been on TV, we were on Top of the Pops performing "Actually It's Darkness," I think, which is quite a funny thing in itself.
Yes.
But
It's not the one you
I remember
imagine.
the next day being like recognised and like just by some guy saying, "Oh, I saw you on TV last night," and I thought, "Wow, that's weird." Um, and then from then on for quite a few years, because we were quite, I guess visually present in TV and magazines and stuff. Yeah, I guess there was an element of kind of fame coming, kind of start to creep in, which took us all by surprise a lot. And I don't think we actually coped with it that well because we're quite introverted people, really. So, and we were just still operating in the same way that we were just a band that played music, and we all had our roles within the band, but we weren't. None of us was more important than the other person.
It never got to your heads, and I'd met you at record store signings and HMV and stuff like that, and I'd seen you play shows, but there never felt like this moment that you all kind of forgot where you came from. There was never any arrogance, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you now. I'd say it to anyone. I was listening to the remote part, and I could hear the songs were more accessible, and I felt like the radio was playing stuff like American English. I put on Radio One, I'd be like, "Fuck!" Like these guys have made it, but you
Yeah,
you guys still felt like the band that I could still be and that were happy to have a pint if you met them, if you're at a gig you'd say hello. It wasn't like you were taken and put on a pedestal.
no, well, again, that's to do with also the people of Scottish nature is very kind of self-deprecating anyway. But also the bands that we grew up with were like that. You felt like they were, and that was the whole point of music. As like I said before, it was all about it's like a creative relay race almost. You were passing the baton to the other bands. I mean, it was all that. So you're all part of the same thing. You're all part of the same world. So yeah, even though like your band was getting more and more popular, you still were part of that world. You were still, I guess, Kurt Cobain or Steve Malcolm was from Pavement, or they were big influences on us when we were younger. They were like obviously in really popular bands when we were young, particularly Nirvana, a massive worldwide band, but they still felt like they were trying to do the best they could with integrity, and keep the band's identity as they wanted it to be. And that's the principle that we always worked with too, and still do.
Were
Um,
you I suppose when you've been on Top of the Pops and you've done music videos that were played on Kerrang and MTV2 a lot and Scuds and all those sorts of things, and people were recognizing you, were you kind of, because you're all a bit introverted and you don't want the big limelight, you're not trying to be political and go out there and use any moment to get headlines, were you uncomfortable? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? Kind of like, oh, I just want to be able to play music and do shows. I don't really want to be this recognized person wherever I go.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that strange. I always operate in the fact that no one knows who I am. Other than at shows, obviously, concerts when I've got a role to play and I get on stage and sing the songs that we've made up together, and I really enjoy that. Still, I love that the whole idea of concerts and people coming together and enjoying music, and I love going to concerts and I love playing them. But out with that, really just rather kind of work on things myself, whether it's songs or writing or painting or all things I like to do. And I do that, quite a sort of, I guess, I've always been a bit of a loner in that way. And I like being on my own and doing things on my own. I love working with people too. But so, yeah, the nature of being like, going on television or that's just not something. Even performance or not. Like you've seen me play concerts before, obviously, and I
Yeah,
stand
many
at the side
times.
when I'm not doing things. When I'm not singing, I stand at the side because I let the band kind of focus on the band, the audience focus on the band because I'm not there for approval or I'm there, because I want to perform. songs that we've done together. Um, so yeah, I suppose there's an element of I've always been wary of. No, I don't mean fame. I just mean like I don't know. I just try not to think about it and just concentrate on doing good work, I suppose.
Was it quite difficult when stuff like American English was that radio played song of bands like Snow Patrol? I always feel like Biffy Clyro had that moment when a certain song or a certain album would take them to that, not commercial, but you'd just see the jump where you're like, oh, loads more people are talking about Idlewild now. I thought it was my little secret and shared it with friends, and now people are asking me if I listen to Idlewild. As a band,
Yeah,
did you kind of feel pressure then because you were like, oh shit, like the radio's playing? I remember You Hold the World in Your Arms, like that was
yeah,
massive. Like I'd just stick on the radio if I wanted to listen to you. It felt like you'd
yeah.
really made it.
That was on Lou, and it was also used a lot that summer in sports things.
Yeah,
And then it was on like some video game, FIFA or something. So yeah, it just became especially that opening refrain came sort of ubiquitous that summer. Which was obviously great for us because it meant we were selling tickets to our tour and the records was being sold and the record label were pretty happy. I mean, we were signed to Parlophone, which was, we were label mates with Kylie Minogue, Radiohead, Blur, and Coldplay.
it's
So
not bad, is it?
we were the bottom of that pile
Yeah.
in terms of like we were always underachieving compared to that. And yeah, I suppose there wasn't the way that you mentioned Snow Patrol or even Coldplay or Biffy Clyro, or they had a song that kind of took them beyond, and we always felt like certainly our label felt like we didn't quite get there. Like we got to just purely they were thinking purely on a commercial level, which obviously is a business, so that's what they're thinking
Yeah.
of. That it was not quite enough. So we'd signed, but they were still committed to the bands. We'd signed for 4 albums, and they were fully committed for those 4 albums, and they did a great job, and we had nothing but good memories of that experience. But we just weren't popular enough for to be on that level of a record label, I suppose. Ultimately, because we didn't have that one crossover song, even though "World in Your Arms" and American English were played a lot and became you know what you would a band nowadays would like love a sort of hit like that, but like 20 years ago or whenever it was, 23 years ago now, I think it was still there was always a feeling that we could have done better, which seems a bit absurd, but that was the we're always fighting against that being signed to such a big record label.
Does it feel like you were very almost in touching distance of being what they were looking for to be that, the Biffy Clyro moment where they had, only revolutions that took them to everywhere and all heights and became, the name? Do you feel like you were just almost touching distance for the record label to be, yeah, that's great, or did it feel
Well,
like
I
you were
don't know. I
never?
mean, also like I'm the reason why we're probably talking today, 30 years into making music together, is probably because it didn't happen like that.
Yeah,
So I'm very reflective about that. It happened the way it was supposed to, I guess. We weren't very good at the time in terms of that whole time of the band. So the remote parts out, we're playing, the songs everywhere on the radio. We're playing big gigs, but that was the whole time that Bob Fairfell left the band, and we were playing some really quite bad gigs as a band because we weren't practicing as much. We were kind of a bit. There was a disconnect between certainly between Bob and the rest of the band when before there hadn't been that. Um, there was sort of drinking involved, all that kind of stuff that happens to young guys on the road. We were always very kind of sensible, but Bob he wasn't so much, and not to diminish his role in the band, he was a big part of the band up until that point. So he left the band during that whole period. So that was really like not ideal. We had to basically get a stand-in bass player and then reconfigure for what became Warnings and Promises.
yeah,
So we were playing some of our biggest shows, yet we were probably the worst we'd been for a while. And also we'd kept some of that chaos from Hobos and Port and Broken Windows. We still had that, but that didn't really work when you're playing big places. And we found that pretty quickly, like on stage at big festivals, when things would still sound a bit scuzzy and sometimes a wee bit out of tune or whatever, being played too fast or whatever. And it didn't translate to then the band after you would be very slick and professional. And the audience was loving it. And it also as lead singer that didn't really speak to the crowd and stood at the side when he wasn't doing anything. again, that wasn't really like main stage at a festival. So like, so it was like I realized very quickly around that period, maybe we're not like cut out for this. Certainly currently. I mean, the irony is like a few years later, we were ready for it, but the spotlight by that point had just started to move off us because Warnings and Promises era, we were a very good live band, very really kind of almost professional with production, and it was like, but almost it was too late because the spotlight had sort of moved on to the Kaiser Chiefs and Franz Ferdinand and Block Party and all these bands that had started after.
Do you feel like the timeout and the hiatus was everything you needed so you could breathe and kind of remember what you loved about the band and what you missed so you come back stronger?
Yeah, I think that it was a really important thing for us to do. The music industry was changing constantly. So, like, the two records we'd had out previous were on different labels who had both folded. It was just like the labels would start and then end the following year. So it just felt like no one really knew what was going on. When we started, you made records and then you toured to promote the records, whereas it had changed to you made records to promote the tours, because that was the only way that people could make any income and carry on being kind of creative. So there was a real change there, and also everyone had started having children and got married, and we're all living in different places, and it just felt like a natural space to take a pause. We knew we'd make another record, but we had to wait till we had that kind of creative, like I guess, like we found a creative goal almost. Like not just we didn't just need to make another record, we needed to make another really good record that meant something to us. So it took us about 3 or 4 years, and then we got back, and the band since then have been quite a different thing. Really, kind of really good way. Like naturally, it's just evolved as we've got older. And none of us take it for granted, and the fact that we can still kind of collaborate and be with each other and really produce good work is, something that I think is the real achievement of the band.
And how's it feel to still be doing it now and making sure you're doing it for the right reasons? Because there's no pressure. You haven't got someone saying, you need to do this band, you've signed, you have to do this album. You're taking the time it needs, you've been away, and you're back with your 10th studio album, which blows my mind. But does it feel like there's not as much pressure that you can do what you guys want, that you can be around each other and not be, all the politics and all the shit that's come in the past is gone, and now you can just focus on enjoying yourselves and getting the right work-life balance?
Yeah, well, we always kind of did that to a degree too. We've never been a band. I've always been a band that kind of do things on our own terms. So yeah,
Yeah.
but much more so now. Yeah, I mean now, I mean obviously you've got to be creative if you try to make I mean resourceful if you're trying to make a living being creative. So, um, and Idlewild's a really good opportunity for us to kind of all together like go on tour and um, you know sell t-shirts and make some money from the shows and like be together and play music, and so it's all positive in all those different levels, and in between everyone's obviously diversified like most creative people have to do other things as well as the band. Like Rod runs a studio, and Lucci does a lot of composing for like film and TV and adverts, and Andrew makes records and I make solo records. So everyone does their own thing as well, which allows us to be full-time creatives. And then obviously the band is like kind of our main thing. When we all get back together, the focus is on Idlewild, because I think ultimately, when you're much older and we're not playing anymore, we'll look back in your life and it will be something, probably the most important thing that we've all done together creatively. Even it may not be, there might be other, I'm not saying there'll be other satisfying projects down the line, I'm sure still, but it is something that we've made that has really had a positive effect on lots of people. So
No, it's magical. And now that you've got this whole album recorded, finished, mastered, ready for the world to listen to, it's been over 5 years. People are going to be excited to see the songs live. Is it a really good feeling of kind of being able to get that and kind of look at the set list and think, right, we can play some of the new songs off the self-titled album, get them for us feeling as musicians and creators, excited again and challenging ourselves to replicate those songs from the studio into a live setting on stage and, test how the audience like them?
yeah, I mean, as part of it, the preparation is almost the process and the preparation I almost love more.
Yeah.
When you're making a record, it's not so much recording it and finishing it. It's like coming up with the ideas, and then when it's this sort of sketch, this kind of raw sort of state, pretty much before you go on tour too, when you've got all the songs you can play, and actually we're practicing tomorrow and on Sunday for the first time in ages, and that's we're preparing all those emails going around of songs that we could possibly play and other ones to try. So it's that whole idea, and how can we do little things differently with them? Can we, just things like that. And the new songs, we've been playing them quite a lot. Actually, we've been playing new songs much more this year than any other of their older songs because they've been recording them and doing them, getting them, filming them, and all that kind of stuff. So we're quite good at playing 5 or 6 of the new album songs, and then obviously the rest of the set will be a real mix of old ones. And obviously we play all the songs people expect and want to hear, but we also try and play like always a handful of album tracks and ones really for the people down the front that are really really invested in the band. And so we're just kind of working out what ones to play at the moment. But yeah, I do the preparation of touring and when you actually get on tour, and it's fun. I don't do it all the time though. Like I maybe like I do a couple of tours a year, solo tours, like small solo tours, but I just
Yeah.
do them in the car with a couple of people that I play with. That's not the same thing as when I do. I'll go on tour and we've got a van, and you know we're staying in Premier Inns instead of travel lodges.
You get the breakfast included.
No, we don't do that. No,
Oh,
no,
what?
we need to sell a few more records before the breakfast is included.
Exactly. And there's no Littlewoods anymore, so you're going to be screwed.
No, unfortunately, there's no Littlewoods to. That's a second choice for breakfast.
Ah, and I suppose you're talking about the set list, you're talking about incorporating new songs off the album, promoting it. How do you, as a band, kind of all agree and make sure you're happy yourselves, but also pleasing the fans? Because everyone wants to hear the singles, everyone wants to hear all the anthems that got them into it, but you can only please so many people because the set can only be, an hour and a half. It must be tough
Yeah,
to kind of leave a few classics off there or oldies that the original kind of Idlewild fans still want to hear, but at the same
but
time, you need to please the hardcore fans.
yeah, well, we can't do a lot of the older ones that well anymore, just because my voice is a lot deeper and I don't really scream. Well, if I did scream, I wouldn't be able to play like a whole tour. I would just like.
One night only, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's like the energy levels are a bit more sedate now. Not to mean that we don't really get into it, but so the early songs don't really work quite as well. So we will do a few, but it's largely from 100 Broken Windows onwards.
Yeah,
And yeah, we just try and make sure that everything's represented. We tend to quite often stay away from it's a couple of records we don't normally go, like Post Electric Blues and Make Another World and Everything Ever Written. Those 3 records don't really get enough attention. I don't think, but then I also appreciate that you've only got 20. Normally play 20 to 25 songs. So you've only got a certain amount of time, so you can't really focus on that if because there's so many songs that people really want to hear, and you also want to represent yourself now by playing new material. So that mix has got to be kind of well balanced for people to come. But the show's sold out. Most of the shows anyway have sold out long before they even announced the album, which was amazing for us because we thought, we put them on sale a long time before we announced the record, so they had plenty of time to sell because you never know how many people are going to show up. So we were all delighted that and that's obviously really good for playing more gigs next year and hopefully some festivals next summer.
that's really exciting. And I suppose you have got this lovely balance where you can be at home, be a family man. You've got your incredible band that is still going strong with brand new music that people are going to go crazy for. You've got some great tour dates, but at the same time, like you said, you've still got your solo stuff, and it feels like a really nice place to be. You can then do your art when you're at home, be creative, and there's nothing really tying you down that you can't try new things as well at the same time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always been a big decision I made as well. I mean, obviously, I live well within my means. I have a modest life, and I'm not like never been interested in expensive things or big houses or anything like that. So I've always had a very modest life, and because of that, I've been able to kind of operate on by being creative and doing things that I need to do. And I'm lucky in that way that I've managed to kind of manage to do that. Yeah, I do. I wouldn't be able to do one thing all the time. I wouldn't be. I'd be get bored by that, I think. So I'm very interested in visual art and also writing as well as music. So I try and balance. Although I'm known only, I guess, for music, but I balance it out. But then whenever Idlewild comes along, I'm working on an Idlewild record and doing a tour. That's always a very special thing for me and for everyone in the band. It's just it's yeah, we're still kind of excited by it, and I think that's. I mean, I'll be 50 next year, so that's pretty cool. That I'm doing the same thing. So I was like 19 years old, and it still feels fresh, and it
That
still
is
feels
wild,
kind of
isn't it?
artistic and creative. Yeah,
Over 30 years at 50, still getting excited by playing the songs, going out there and just doing what you love.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not. I never take it for granted. I really appreciate the opportunity of living a creative life, like an art life.
It's magical. And is there still things that you want to do? Is there like a film you'd like to direct or a score for a film you'd love to get
No,
involved in or
I'm a fan of writing, so I'd like to. And I've done, I've written bits and pieces, journals, and I did a book about Idlewild. Well, it was a collaboration with an artist, actually, a photographer, for the 25th anniversary. And I've done a book of poems and lyrics and things. I'd like to, yeah, I'll probably end. I would imagine I thought I'll always make records and write songs and perform them. That's, I think, I'm a lifer in that way. But if I was going to do it, something else like a project, I'd probably try and write a book, which I'm kind of working on at the moment. But who knows? But I think writing is something that I'll do more of as I get older.
that's beautiful. And there are going to be people that are listening that I always see whenever an update comes out that are begging for re-releases of your vinyls, especially 100 Broken Windows. Is that ever going to happen, or is it people are just going to have to accept that they're going to have to pay eBay prices for these collectible items?
Well, I don't know because they no because Warner's own all that stuff now, and
Yeah.
they reissued the remote part, and they reissued Warners and Promises, and they reissued Captain for vinyl. I think
Was
National
it
Vinyl Day
Record
or
Day or
something.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, so they haven't done Hope Is Important or Broken Windows yet, but I'd imagine they will
Yeah, it's
because
just
they're
this.
doing the other ones, and now there's more interest in Idlewild now because of our new record and the tour and things. So I wouldn't I think that was I think that might happen. I don't know. I've got no confirmation that it will, but because they've started reissuing some of the records because obviously they were only did small runs of vinyl in 28 when that came out because it was really moving into CD was moving into digital and people thought vinyl would be dead. So they did as many tapes of Broken Windows as they did vinyl
That's
because
wild, isn't
tapes were a big thing still, in the late 90s, early 90s. Um, like a singles used to come out on tapes. They used to come out in 7-inch single and tape.
it?
I've got all the tapes, like tape. It's weird thinking like a single. It's like a tape with two songs in it.
It is crazy, and I think as a fan of your band and a collector of, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I love buying anything that's like a variant. The fact I
Yeah,
could get Warning Promises last year for like a normal price, I think it's like £20, and have this
yeah,
beautiful red vinyl. It's great. I'm not being ripped off. I've not got to go and pay some idiot on eBay.
yeah. No, I mean, I think for that reason they will. I think they will. They'll realize that it's good. Those records they don't reissue loads of them, and they always sell out. So I think they probably will do that.
And do you still get nervous? Do you kind of look at the fact that a new album's about to come out? It's been so many years. The fans, you know, they want new material. They've been excited. I always feel that the stakes are high when you've had so long away. The fans want to be blown away and still feel they probably the same way they did when they're 20 or 2018, even like me. Do you
Yeah,
feel like
well,
there's a pressure?
yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, I get usually nervous every time I play because I'm not really a natural performer. But as soon as you get on stage and after you've played one or two songs and you're comfortable with the sound on stage, and then you realize that everyone there likes you, they're there to enjoy themselves, you start worrying less about that. Um, yes, then the nerves go away and you can just, you're in that moment with everyone. But yeah, I do think, I learned early on that there's always going to be someone that is having it like an epiphany. It's like the best night of their life, and there's always going to be someone in the crowd that hates it and just thinks it's rubbish. So and there's nothing you can do about that. Like it'd be amazing if everyone was having an amazing time, but that sometimes that just doesn't happen. So, particularly nowadays with everyone commenting straight away on on social media or whatever, I don't focus on that. But I do get nervous. But by the second or third song, I'm usually kind of into it, and the only pressure really comes from the band themselves to kind of make sure that everyone's playing all right. But we're at that level now of, we're not like pure like pros that it's just like getting on stage and clocking in another performance, and there is a real effort required for us to pull it off. We don't tour enough in terms of like it's not slick, which is also kind of nice too. We've kept that like slightly ramshackle thing through 30 years of performance. Things can still go wrong, regularly do. But I suppose it wouldn't be an Idlewild gig without that. If it was too sort of polished, people would be suspicious.
Every memory I have of seeing you, even if it's at a festival or, like I said, at the Charlotte and Leicester tiny pubs or university, I've been to see you a lot. I'm talking probably 20, 30 times. I,
Wow.
I've seen a lot of times like you're cursed, like a guitar amp will just cut out on the
Yeah.
second song, or for some reason the leads aren't working for the bass, and I'm just like, are you fucking cursed? Like, what is going on?
Oh,
Like,
we've had so many, and loads of that's been at big gigs, like TV
yeah,
at Glastonbury, and all the monitors break, and we can't hear us. We're televised for millions of
Jesus.
people, and we can't hear ourselves. That's actually interesting, that Glastonbury footage, because I have to go down into the bit where the photographers are, so I can hear myself from the PA system.
So everyone's like, "Wow, he's cool. He's getting down by the fans." It's like,
No,
no,
I'm
I
like,
need
I
to hear
can't
what I'm
hear on
singing.
stage. Nothing that you can hear anything. Yeah, there was a bit of a sort of running joke about that, but it became like not so much a joke when it just seemed to keep happening.
Yeah.
And also, around the time of the remote part, Bob was a wee bit of a kind of, you never knew what it was going to be like, because he was a bit of an erratic performer. So that, as well as all the kind of technical problems, there was actually human problems as well. So you had to deal with.
Um,
And even actually after that, Gavin or whatever, it was always, yeah, there was always a sort of slight, as I say, like a slightly ramshackle thing about the band. That a lot of bands I grew up with had this, like Pavement were famously like that. Every time I saw them live, you're thinking, how the hell do you actually get through a tour?
yeah.
Because it just seemed like everything was going wrong, but they just like, and there was Idlewild weren't quite to that extent, and also when you were putting a lot of energy in things and jumping around, obviously things are just breaking all the time.
Yeah.
Like, guitars are being mangled and distortion pedals are being kicked around, and everything was breaking, and you didn't have the money necessarily to fix it or whatever. But yeah, but I mean, it's all worked out well in the end. We're still playing music, and we've still got a backline of gear that sort of works.
Just about.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come and see you guys again. It's been way too long, and I live in the Midlands, so for me, it's going to be Wolverhampton, where I have memories of seeing you at the Wolf from back in the day anyway. So
Oh
I feel
yeah, that'll
like
be great.
I'm going in like a little time machine. I really can't wait, and I'm just like already excited to hear. I've been obviously lucky enough to be sent the album in advance, which I think is genuinely some of your best work. So to see these songs live, I'm already intrigued. Like, oh, how are they going to pull this off, and how's this going to work? So I,
Well, it sounded good live. I thought the songs were sounding good live, and we're playing them because they're very in keeping with the Little Discourage,
yeah,
Modern Way of Letting Go, I Am What I Am Not. They've got similarities with a lot of songs in terms of just the way they're played and how they come across. And I suppose it's not the first time. It's maybe more like American English or something. So
definitely.
we're sort of representing all different eras of the band in the new record, which is why we called it Idlewild, because it sort of just sounds like. I remember letting someone hear it when I'd finished it, and they were like, just sounds like Idlewild." Not in a
Yeah.
bad way, in a good way. And we're like, well, maybe we should just call it Idlewild.
It is. It's like a
Um,
mix. As a fan of your band for over 20 years, it feels like a mixed pot of all your collective stuff. And I'm just like, it's like a pick a mix. And I'm like, oh, this is what I liked about the remote part. And I absolutely love this bit about, 100 Broken Windows. And I'm like, this feels like a bit of everything all mixed up.
yeah, well, that was kind of the intention too. So I'm glad that it comes across like that.
Yeah, great venues as well. I can't, I probably won't be able to get there, but Barrowland, my God, that's going to be,
Yeah, that one sold out in like a morning, which we were really surprised about. We should have done 2 nights, but
yeah, you
we'll
never
just.
know,
I
do
mean,
you?
it just means that next year we'll be able to play more gigs, so it's great because you never really know now. Everyone wants to be on tour. All bands want to be on tour, and you sort of have one shot of a tour with an album, but because it sold out quickly and seems to be a real interest, I think it means that we'll be able to play more next year, which is what we all want to do.
And I did hear you. I won't get it on you now. I won't be, I'm sure, allowed, but I did hear you say the word festival, so that's exciting.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, like, but we weren't not being really considered for them for the past few years because we've not been doing much. But now that we're back on the radar, and the record's been played on the radio and things, so hopefully we'll be able to play quite a few of them.
Amazing. And how's before we go, what's the feeling like right now, knowing that the album is finished? Does it feel like it's been and gone because you've had it for a while, you've listened back, you've probably digested it? Do you not really care now about the comments that come through and the reviews? Are you kind of like, I'm happy just to share it now and let this album not just be ours, but everyone's?
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that always with creative work. I think no matter what you're doing, it's yours until it's released,
Yeah,
and then it belongs to other people, and then you move on to something else. And that's the way I've always approached. But the good, cool thing about being in a band is like you do that with the records, but then you get to come back to the songs when you play them live and bring them back to life. You know, night after night, the ones that you choose, the songs that you choose to bring back to life, you can do that again and again and capture that feeling again. But in terms of the recorded work, yeah, like it still feels when I first made it, when we first finished it, I was listening to it a lot, like in the car or going on walks and just being really, just being a fan of my own band. Yeah, but then the minute it comes out, I'll probably never listen to it again, you know, like because it belongs to other people and it's like I want to write, you know, do something different, but I still get to, you know, sing the songs live, so that's cool.
I wonder if it will be as long wait for the next follow up for this.
I don't know. I mean, like I say, we don't really we concentrate on the present as people really. But I would like to think that because there's been such a positive reaction so far to the songs and the tour, and hopefully next year we'll do more stuff. I'd like to think we'll do another record, you know, much sooner.
That's that for me. That's music to my ears. Hopefully, people are listening now, but you don't want people to misquote and be like, "Roddy said the album's only next week," and I'm like, "No,
Yeah,
no, calm down."
yeah. Who knows though? I mean, I'm just looking forward to. I'm actually looking forward to going to practice tomorrow and seeing everyone. And we're going to try and play a few songs that we've not played for ages, so that's always fun.
See how rusty
Um,
you all are.
yeah, or like, you know, inability to remember things that you've actually made up.
You have to have a notepad with you for every lyric and chord that you've
Yeah,
all
well,
ever
actually,
done.
I'm pretty good with that. It's like muscle memory. The words always come back to me, but um, yeah, we'll see.
My final question for you today. I really appreciate your time, and what I'm have done with every guest, all the names I've mentioned to you today, I've never changed my final question because I like the episodes to be as personal as I can. So, as this interview is all edited and we put it out there for the world to listen to, the listeners will hear a song that's played at the very end of the podcast. And every episode is different because I ask you on the spot to choose a song that means a lot to you personally. Now, it's not an Idlewild song, it's a song within music that means a lot to you. And I know I'm being cruel and you've probably got 100 songs in your head, but is there one when I ask you the question that comes to your heart and soul above all other songs that you would love to be played at the end of today's podcast?
Well, I love the song "Forever Young" by Bob Dylan.
Oh,
I think that's
nice.
maybe one of my favorite songs. There's a wonderful version of it on. Did you ever say you a Dylan fan?
I am, but I've not seen the film.
Well, but the Shadow Kingdom, the record, the live performance he did during lockdown. So
Yeah,
that record came out as a after it, and it's a really brilliant performance. I think Buck Meek from Big Thief's playing guitar on that performance. And it's a young band, so it's like different versions of his old songs, and they do a version of "Forever Young" that's one of the best I think I've heard, even better than the one that's on Planet Waves. I just feel that song is like it's kind of like a hymn to kind of hopefulness in the way that it should be sort of sung at schools, because it's all about the idea of like, you know, as an artist or anyone creative, you're trying to sort of capture the sort of the way that children have that ability to go into their subconscious so quickly and just be imaginative and like, and through that they're able to kind of see the world in a really positive, interesting way. And that's this song "Forever Young" just celebrates that. It celebrates art and it celebrates kind of life. And I think it's just, yeah, I think it's one of the best songs ever written.
what a beautiful reason for the song. And what I'll do, I'll make sure I get that specific version.
Yeah, I think it's the best one.
Yeah, that's perfect. Roddy, genuinely, you can probably tell I do this podcast. I get to speak to people. Some people want to come on because they're promoting something. Other people come on because the record label's pushing for the numbers. But when I got the opportunity and someone said Idlewild, I was like, fucking look, anything else you're thinking about this year, don't worry about it. Just get me Idlewild because I was that kid. I was that youth at uni coming and using all my money, buying the enemy, listening to your
Yeah.
tracks. And I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed. And I
Well, I
genuinely,
appreciate
you
that.
know,
Thank you very much for continuing to be interested.
Mate, when I saw you playing Wolverhampton, I was like, I'm going to that. Like, I'm getting my friends together who I haven't seen for years. We're going to feel like we're 20 again, and I can't
I think
wait.
that there's a bit, and I've got messages from people saying that, which is lovely. Like all the people that I used to go and see Idlewild with, we're going to see you, come and see you again, whatever. So
Yeah,
I think there'll be a real lovely vibe at the shows because everyone's a wee bit older. I mean, some people bring their kids now. That's because I guess we span like a generation.
yeah.
So it's a really nice vibe normally.
I really appreciate your time. It genuinely means a lot. And like I said, the album is absolutely unbelievable. I can't wait for the world to listen to it. And I'll be telling everyone, all the listeners, all the people on social media to go and listen because it's absolutely totally worth the wait. And yeah,
Thanks very much.
I'll try and come and say hello at Wolverhampton and shake
Yeah,
your
do
hand
it.
and
That'd
get
be
you a
nice.
drink.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to you.
So there's my interview with me and Roddy from the awesome band Idlewild. A long time coming, but worth every minute of the wait that it took, because honestly, I was so thrilled to sit down and talk with him. He's one of the best songwriters out there, one of the best frontmen, and Idlewild have had a good place in my heart for almost 30 years, so it really does truly mean the world to me to have them on Mark and Me. If you've enjoyed today's episode, and I know a lot of people will tune in because Idlewild mean hell of a lot to a lot of people, please share the episodes. Put it on your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, TikTok, or just tell anyone that you know that likes good music. Everyone has seen Idlewild. Everyone's heard their singles. They're an incredible band that deserve all the hype that goes behind them. So just share these episodes because it really does spread the word of Mark and Me. It costs nothing for you guys to do at home and makes all the difference to the growth of Mark and Me. And truly, I'm a one-man team, so any help goes a really long way. Also, let's give a shout out to the two sponsors of Mark and Me, Richer Sounds. If you want to get yourself anything to do with audio and visual, go on richersounds.com. They won't be beaten on price and are truly the best experts out there. And secondly, Vice Press. If you want a nice poster, limited edition print or collectible item, go on vicepress.com, add anything to the basket and simply use the discount code MarkandMe10 for 10% off your first purchase. Right guys, I'm going to go because it's going to be a busy week with loads of new episodes coming. I think I'm going to try and get you 3 episodes this week because it's that busy. But in the meantime, go and grab yourself a ticket to Idlewild. This weekend, go and listen to the brand new album because it's absolutely unbelievable. I've been lucky enough to have an advance copy and I haven't stopped listening to it. It's that good. And, stick around for a new episode in a few days' time. But until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
May God blessed keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every road, and may you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong. And may you stay forever young. 'Cause always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of change shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. And may you stay. For